shape, yeah.
There's a couple of you that say when we discuss education, and Craig had, near the end of the show yesterday, had some very passionate comments about that. And then also, there have been some of you that said education is great, but NIL deal gets you paid now. That's how football schools are recruiting. We're not arguing that. What we're trying to say is, what happens when the NIL deals run out and you no longer play football? Have you put yourself in a position to grow up, mature? Yes, you might have a little money, but what happens when the cheers die down? We have heard and seen too many stories of those who did not know how to handle their money, and believe me, I've struggled with that myself, but then there was nothing else after their football career.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's saying that they're better off not getting paid. Nobody's saying that they shouldn't get paid. I mean, at least not in this room. But there's another side to that where I don't know. I just, as a human being, which I know it's hard for any of us to really think that way anymore. Like, we're so just, what does Twitter say? What does Instagram say? You know, like, I don't know. I don't think we just think about just human beings anymore, just on individual or group basis as much, unless we're just thinking about how much we hate that group or that individual or whatever. I'm just thinking about the young man and the young woman who's not getting the big money NIL deal like a Bryce Young is, or a Caleb Williams, or whoever rumoredly, reportedly, or like Texas Tech's football team is. Like, that's what's great about what they're doing, is that I think they primarily did it to just like eliminate any infighting over this guy's the quarterback making all the money, and they totally eliminate any like Quinn Ewers situation where there's jealousy, or a Bijan thing where there's jealousy. Very smart on their part. But also that $25,000 would go a long way for all of those guys. But there is a calculation there that, hey, let's get some walk-ons that might go scholarship elsewhere by giving. There's a lot to that. But not everybody's going to be able to get that deal. And even those who are getting money while they're in college, that's going to last them. You hope that they save it and that it's going to last them for forever, but it's not. I mean, unless they're just making gobs and gobs of money. But we have no indication, even with the Nico Iamaleava reports, you know, of anybody making just retirement money at this point. Maybe there are some guys that do. But think about how many college athletes there are. You're maybe just thinking about like a team, but there's not only the team, there's a team within a conference, there's multiple conferences, there's multiple different levels, and there's multiple different sports. So at the end of the day, we're not just talking about a handful of guys who are getting NIL, and they're out of the equation. Like, for those guys making life-changing money already, good for you, man. Just hopefully you handle it well and you get your taxes right and you put a little in savings and all that. But what about the thousands of others that aren't making thousands of dollars or millions of dollars? My point was not anything about not paying or any of that. It's not that. It's just, let's not just throw the education piece to the side like it's nothing, like it has no value, like it doesn't matter. And I know there will be somebody inevitably who says, well, when I was a college football player at Mary Hardin Baylor or whatever, like, we didn't have time to go to class, or you know what I'm saying. You hear that, guys, well, we you know, the degree is kind of a flimsy thing or whatever. You hear that some places, but that's not every place. There are places where it does matter. And if you don't want it to matter, you won't allow it to matter. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of athletes every year that graduate that aren't going to be playing on Sundays or aren't going to be playing in the NBA. And we can't just, you know, not think about them or throw them to the wayside and not prepare them for the future, or try to put a little education in their brains just because we all want to go gaga over NIL deals. That's all I'm saying is, it's the youth. It's our future, man. And you might think that college doesn't mean anything, or that it does, but it does mean something. It does help prepare people. There's a reason why everybody's guffawing over a simple Dave Aranda story where he simply pointed out a body language lesson. And I saw somebody go, so what? That's what a coach is supposed to do. But that's where we are now, is that's like a headline story, as a coach did what he's supposed to do, rather than talk about NIL or money being exchanging hands. And that's what I'm saying, is that coaching life lesson, educational, prepare the future for the future, that can't get lost just because we go gaga over TV deals. And so I'm not speaking to Bryce Young or Caleb Williams. They're going to be fine. They're going to play in the NFL. I'm speaking for the 99% of other athletes out there that aren't making millions at 18 years old.
Let me tell you something. I mean, we encounter it all the time, but when football or whatever sport is over, there are guys who don't have a plan. And so it's good that they're going to make a little bit of money, but the plan is supposed to come in college. That's where you're supposed to get the jumping off point. And you know, just encountering some guys that, you know, have that injury, like they think they're going to at least get an NFL shot so they can make some money for a little while, get injured their senior year, and then they're like, well, no, the NFL shot's not coming. It's not coming ever. And even though they knew it was going to be a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick, now it's not anything because that injury was bad enough. and you've got to restart. So that's where the education part comes in. Plus,
well, let me get some stats, okay? And then I want you 3,000 college players are looked at by the NFL basically every year. 200 and about 75 are drafted. Yes, there's some also free agents that are signed that are undrafted. Less than 1% of college football players, when their eligibility is over, are drafted. Then the NFL career, the average career is around 2.5 years. Those stats alone are why education is also part of even those who make the money, get drafted, and also have great contracts.
Can our college education system be streamlined and better? Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, no, there's no, I mean, for those that want to point that out as their reason for the argument, yes, absolutely. There's too many diploma mills. There's too many that don't care. You're absolutely right on that.
Absolutely. There's too many things that are antiquated, like you should take this class and that class and all that. But also, you know what? I'll just give you my own college experience. I took meteorology, because it was a fun science class to fill a credit. And guess what? Now I know what kind of clouds to look for when I'm outside and I don't have cell phone access to tell me what storm might be rolling through. Like, those look bad, I better get inside. So it was useful. It helped my brain grow. Helping your brain grow is good because we are living in the opposite of the age of enlightenment right now.
Oh, yeah.
There's more information available at our fingertips, and we understand less of it than we ever possibly could have.
Based on Twitter, most people can't spell lose. They can't spell lose. It's L-O-S-E. It's not two O's, but most of Twitter doesn't know that based on my experience. So, I mean, ultimately, has that changed the world all that much? No, but education's not a bad thing, and it's not these guys should be able to play and make millions in NIL or get an edge. No, it's not that. It can be both. You can be a walk-on and make $25,000 at Texas Tech and also get a great degree because you're probably not playing in the NFL and you'll be set up for life. Now, does Texas Tech need to do its part to make sure you get the right degree? Because I do know guys or gals who are athletes who just kind of, let's just give you general studies and you figure it out after we get done with you. There's way too much of that going on. This is not just on the athletes, but there is a way that it can come together and produce great young men and women who do benefit financially, who also benefit educationally, and ultimately the hope as Americans is they benefit our society moving forward as a whole. And that's my thing, is it all can encompass one thing, which is the betterment of everybody and those individuals. It's not just flash the cash 24/7.
I agree with both of you, and I feel the same way. The thing about it is we see stories, we've read stories, we have viewed stories about players who have left, who've been broken down, who had money, they've blown it, they've had to go take their Super Bowl rings and sell it at a pawn shop, and all the sad stories. There's more of those than probably the success. Lamont Tucker. Craig Smoak has been 100% correct from day one when it comes to education and accountability. These universities need to stop pretending.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the universities too. That's the thing. I want to make very clear. It's not just on the players, or it's not the players' job to make sure all that happens. It's the universities. And yeah, for far too long, far too many universities have just taken their big fat TV network paycheck and don't really care about the third string wide receiver who may or may not have gotten his degree and what happens to him after that. I mean, it's on everybody. And, I just don't think we have to throw out all of the other benefits that come with college athletics because we just want to make this the NFL as quickly as possible. And that's what it seems like a couple networks and a couple leagues in particular are trying to do. And if they go that route, that's fine. Go let the Georgia players and the Alabama players and everybody else, Vandy, Tennessee, go make as much money. Go make your money, man. Nobody's trying to take cash out of your hands here. I'm not trying to revert it back to the way that it was, where only executives and presidents and chancellors got the money part. No, those days are dead and over, and it's a long time coming. But let's just not focus solely on the money and forget all of the other benefits that come with college athletics and just turn it into a glorified minor league. How does that benefit, I guess it benefits a couple people, dozen people or so, but I'm thinking bigger picture, man. I'm thinking all of us together, this country, the future. That's probably too big for this conversation. And
no, it's not.
Too
a lot
off
of
the
people
rails,
agree with you, and there's going to be some that have their own opinion. MP Craig Dragon is going off today. Paul, he's a dragon, and we're not. But we all have our passion for this.
Ohio State fan says, "Encompass me, Craig." So I don't know what that means, but
yeah, me neither.
Doesn't sound all that bad.
All right. No. Speaking of this, speaking of everything from yesterday's show, how it wrapped up and what Craig and Paul and I were talking about. Here's a picture of Jalen Petrie, drafted by the Houston Texans. Some athletes see their education as plan B, but Baylor football's Jalen Petrie always saw both. School and football was plan A. Before heading to the NFL, he completed both a business degree, and a master's in educational psychology at Baylor. And that just happened to come up yesterday on my timeline for whatever reason. Yesterday evening at some point I went, damn, there you go. That doesn't mean that everybody does that or every education or degree works, but look what he did to set himself up, whether he plays it down in the NFL or not.
And tell me that doesn't matter. Tell me just because he's in the NFL, that other stuff doesn't matter. No, I think that smile on his face isn't because he's a Houston Texan. I think that's because he saw all that hard work pay off. And guess what? The life lessons along the way, like these little bits of knowledge that shape us as people. That's a lot of that goes on in college, man. People living on their own for the first time. Now, the athletes do, bring in the dough, and it's good to see that they're getting it right now. But not everybody's a Jalen Petrie. Let's face it. There are people that are probably not smart enough to be at the university they are, but they're a great D tackle. Mm-hmm. And they need to be taken care of just as well. And that is stuff that falls through the cracks that is unacceptable. And the more that players have power, hopefully things like that are addressed on some level. Because, again, not everybody can get the Lamborghini NIL deal in their local college town.
And look, college is not for everybody.
No, it's not. It's not. It's absolutely
not for everybody. I think that's kind of something that happened in this country, too, where we thought everybody had to go to college. Well, no, there's different things you can do to hit your professional stride. But I'm reminded of something. I know we got to hit a break here. But a few years ago, Smokey, I went to MCC, and they asked me to do an Upward Bound thing where it was a kind of career day thing. And so they had – I was in a room on a panel with other people who were in – I was in media. I was kind of the media guy. There were other people in that panel. And there was a kid in the room, and one of the people on the panel asked him what he wanted to do. And he said, I want to be a professional football player. And immediately it came to me as the sports radio guy to tell him what he had to do to make the NFL. And I said, look, I'll tell you this right now. I don't like – you're in – and I said, you're in high school. I'm a high school football broadcaster. What's your name? I'd never heard of him. I didn't say that. But what's your name? He told him I'd never heard of him. So – right now, he's not on the best track to go to the NFL if one of the high school broadcasters in a town that's not very big hasn't heard of the guy. Two, I said, look, you've got that. Okay, you got to work really hard. You got to get noticed. You got to not get hurt. You got all these things. You have to have a plan B. And really, the NFL should be plan B. The NFL should be, if everything works out, then my plan B is great. Plan A should be, I'm going to be a this unless I make it to the NFL. And the kid looked at me like I was crazy. Come to find out he had like a third cousin who had just gotten drafted in the NFL as a seventh-round draft pick. And I said, that guy right now is living a harder life than I think you understand.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's not guaranteed.
Every morning his phone rings. If it's the team, he's thinking, oh, crap. And it could be just, hey, make sure you're at the airport at 9:30. But when those guys on the phone rings – they're automatically going, okay, today's the day.
Well, we've seen the guys who make the most money get the phone ringing. First of all, in college, this is from an article from 2020, been the Heartland. In college, only 6.5% of football players make it to the NCAA. Only 1.6 of them make it to the NFL. I mean, there are great stories, incredible stories. But to just sit there and blow off education in this entire scenario and discussion is, to me, very, very scary.
Well, I mean, we could just move on from this, but education also doesn't mean showing up for your psych class. It also means the other life lessons learned along the way in college from your coaches, from your professors, from your fellow students that you get to know. I mean, there's a lot of development that goes on. I think anybody that's been in college can attest to that. And you're right, Paul, it's not for everybody. Others learn life lessons a different kind of way, and they're not suited for it. But for those that have that opportunity, not everybody that goes to college doesn't go to college because it's not for them. A lot of them don't go because they can't afford it or they can't go because they don't have the time. So when you tell people who maybe would have loved that opportunity that it means absolutely nothing, as they can't get a great paying job because they don't have that degree, and you just act like those degrees mean absolutely dog mess. No, I'm not flying with that. It might mean dog mess to you because you didn't do it the right way. And there are some jobs where, hey, it might mean something. It might mean a whole lot of nothing. But don't say it just means nothing and that money is the only thing that rules the roost from college athletics. I'm just never going to be on board with that.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. The chat room, of course,